Welcome to the Fat Fueled Family Podcast, where every week Danny and Maura Vega discuss topics that help families live a healthy and active lifestyle with their little ones, including nutrition and training, peaceful parenting, education, and mindset. To stay up to date, make sure to hit subscribe on this podcast and check out the blog at www.fatfueled.family. You can also find them on Facebook and Instagram at dannyvega.ms, at fatfueledmom, and at fatfueledkids, and Fat Fueled Family on YouTube. Enjoy the show.
Friends, hope everybody's doing well. I am alone today. This was a solo conversation between me and my good friend Carlos Dones. Carlos just finished his master's and he wrote this great paper called Perceived Mental and Physical Stress of Endurance Runners. So this was a really interesting paper and we did a little deep dive into it. We talked about all the different types of stress and, we kind of speculated on some of the reasons why some people handle the stress better than others. Just a great conversation. Carlos is a great friend. And actually, Carlos was here earlier today, but he had to leave because we had to record another podcast, which is kind of funny. I would have loved to record this intro with him. I actually hooked him up with some Santa Cruz medicinals, CBD tinctures for some physical ailments that he had. So I wanted to bring that up because I'm a big believer in these products. And we do have a code for that. If you use Fat Fueled Mom at checkout, you'll save 15% on that. And again, I take CBD a lot. I take it almost every day, depending on how hard I'm training, which right now I'm taking quite a bit. Keep in mind, number one, that when you're taking CBD and you have something you want to work on, whether it's anxiety, inflammation, any of those areas, the published literature is very clear that you're going to need 5 to 20 milligrams per kilogram for your dosing. So if you just take a milliliter and you're not looking at the dosing, or you have an underdosed product, which is the majority of them, you're probably not going to feel anything. And if you do, it's probably placebo. Because I know a lot of these companies they're giving you 500 milligram bottles. To give you an idea, I'm about 100 kilograms. And so 5 times 100 is 500. I'd have to drink a bottle a day if I was trying to, actually affect some change. So I love Santa Cruz medicinals because, they are potently, they have the right dosage and they're also, lab tested all the time. And I know Brendan has a strong commitment to quality. So those are my guys and that's what we use. CBD isolate. It's great quality. But back to Carlos, just to give you a little bio on him. So after finishing his enlistment in the U.S. Marine Corps, Carlos found himself a little out of shape and a little bored. So he decided to start running again, something he did a lot of in his youth and during his military service. But it wasn't enough for him to just run. He had to do something that challenged him, that forced him to prove himself capable of achieving something that most people would never be able to. He decided to run ridiculously long races. Carlos has participated in multiple endurance events over the past 20 years, including 50-mile runs, 100-mile runs, multiple day nonstop events such as his race that he did called the Grand de Grand, which is 170 miles, 7-day 6-stage race across the Utah desert in September of 2015. And he did it all while keto. And after deciding that he needed to find a better way, he got together with Vinnie Tortorich, another mutual friend of ours. And Vinnie coached him on his nutrition. Carlos says that he would never have been able to finish the race if he wasn't ketogenic. And guys, I think you're really going to enjoy this episode, especially if you're focused on stress, because this is something I've been really looking into for about 3 to 4 years now. So hope you enjoy the show. Hey, everybody. I just wanted to take a quick minute to talk about our sponsor, Keto Brick. As you guys know, I have been around since the very beginning when it was just an idea, when Robert was getting ready for the show that took him pro, and he needed something to help him hit his macros. And I've seen it grow into the company it is today. Just so proud of my friend, and I'm so proud of the company he's built, the people he's been able to help, as he has several people who work for them. And so he's actually helping people make a living doing this now, which is just unbelievable and so inspirational to me. If you don't know what Keto Bricks are, they are shelf-stable fat bombs, for lack of a better term. They are 1,000 calorie bricks, and they have great ingredients. They have ketogenic macros, usually like 88 to 90 grams of fat with 30 grams of protein. And then the carbs are anywhere from 9 to 14. Super low carb, super keto friendly, and you can do all types of cool stuff with them. I tell everybody my favorite is Keto Brick cereal. I chop it up into little chunks and serve it with a bowl of cereal with almond milk or goat milk, which is my favorite. They have several flavors. They now have vegan and whey options. So they have the whey protein peanut butter as well as the old school pea protein peanut butter, which either one of them is easily in my top two. Go back and forth between those and the toasted almond coconut. So definitely go to www.ketobrick.com, get yourself some bricks, and use Vega for a chance to win a whole month supply of bricks. What's up, bro?
What's going on, Danny? How are you, man?
Bro, this is awesome, man. It's like we had you 3 times on the Ketogenic Athlete, and now here you are back on the Fat Fuel Family podcast with me and my lovely Chewbacca wife over here. Which I'm sorry, bro.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I know that you wanted Mauda on because for everybody who doesn't know, Carlos is a huge fan of Mauda.
Yep.
She puts me in place. He sees it.
She's an amazing woman, man. She's
He calls her the lioness.
You are you because of her.
Oh, 100%, bro.
Yeah,
He asks about her all the time when we talk, and you're like, how's the lioness?
Yeah. She's no joke.
Bro, she's no joke. I mean, you've seen her. You've seen her in action.
I've seen her in action, up close, personal.
So what's new beyond the fact that you finished your master's? You got a new pair of glasses?
I got a new pair of glasses. I finished my master's, man. I'm so excited, man. I was so stressed. I mean, I know you graduated, you got your master's as well. And you know how at the end, man, the last month or so, man, you're just cramming to find time, to finish on time, to stress about what you're writing, what you're not writing, right? For those who don't know, I had to do a case study. That's what we're going to talk about. And what the professor's going to send back for corrections, it's like you're closing your eyes like, oh my God, I hope not. And then it comes back and you're like, oh my God, I didn't realize it was that bad. And then you got to go back to the drawing board. I think I corrected the paper the last day like 10 times.
Back and forth?
Just me. Like I sent it to a friend. He looked at it. Then after, I thought, okay, it's not too bad. When he sent it back, he killed it. And then I did it again. Then I said, I went away and I came back. And that's what I do. That's my technique. I'll write it. I'll print it. I'll look at it. Then I'll walk away because my eyes are so focused, like you're like laser focused on let's say a word that you think is spelled right. And it's really not. You come back and you look at it and go, wait a minute, I spelled that wrong. So I did that honestly 10 times, man. Finally. And then when I got the paper back in the final grade, there was still some errors on it. So, I mean, it turned out good. I got a good grade, but yeah, man, I'm so excited. The stress. I mean, I didn't realize how stressed I was. Get this thing done, man. Last paper took me about 4 months to write. Just putting it together, doing the research, talking to people. It was great because I learned a lot about research, but it was just very taxing on me, physically and mentally.
You know what, bro? Like, I can tell you from experience, and it's awesome because you're an ultra runner. So this is the same mindset. It's like, this is a master's degree. It's not necessary. It's like, I already got my bachelor's. And just like, this is 100 miles. This is 150 miles. This is totally not necessary. I don't have to do this.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I doing this? So I knew that you would finish strong, bro, because, you have that training with, your Marines background and your racing background. So
yeah.
I'm just happy for you, bro, because like, I think when you told me, I was like, I think you had mentioned it before, but I had totally forgotten about it. So,
yeah. Not you. You forgot, Danny?
Yeah, bro,
No.
Please. If it's not in the phone and it's not a reminder, forget it, bro. Like, I can't. I'm freaking despistado. So tell me, let's start this off like we always start this. What is the most critical problem you're currently trying to solve?
During this paper, what I realized was so important, and it's going on right now in the world and the news and all over the place, is that people are just, I want to say like my friends, they're just throwing stuff up on the wall and hope it sticks, right? And that we can put that with COVID that's going on, with the election that just passed. We can talk about fats and proteins and what's good, what's not, what's keto, what's not keto, all these things. People are just kind of throwing it up there and hoping it sticks. What I'm hoping to change and what I'm hoping to do with this paper too, and I'm also talking to people about is, man, research. Do your research. Do your research. Like, so much went into this paper, and not so much as speaking to the people that I spoke to, because that was the easy part for me. For me, before that was researching ultra running, how the body works, motivation, all those things. And I could not do this unless I did some form of research. And if you look at my paper, back of the paper is all, nothing but citations, right? Because I had to actually sit down and research. And I just wish that more people would take the time before they open their mouth on Facebook, on Instagram, in front of other people, do a little bit of research. And you'll be surprised that you can actually, it doesn't mean that you have to agree with what I'm saying, but you'll sound more intellectual. You'll sound like you've done something, right? As opposed to, oh, I believe in this, and block, you throw it on the wall, and hopefully it sticks. And the people who are researching are like, yeah, it's not sticking, buddy. Coming right off the wall. So that's what I kind of wish that people would do a little bit more of. And I think if people would research more, I think we have a better world. We could live in a better world.
Bro, absolutely. I think, research has even been, it's fallen prey to this, because just like with life, we all have our biases, and
you do.
A lot of people aren't even aware of them. And then you're basically coming to a conclusion, and you're hoping for the best and trying to fit that conclusion into what really is happening. And a lot of the time when you see what's happening, it doesn't match your conclusion, and people aren't open enough to say, man, you know what? Maybe I was wrong on the initial premise. Maybe I should look at it a different way. And, for me, that's what we do with the kids. Like, it's like, question everything. And I do mean question everything. Like, Desmond, when he wanted to, he said he wanted to make a decision, like spiritually, when he was 8. And I was like, man, is this the right thing? Like, do you really understand what this is? And I really had to like reel him in first, and then he still was into it. He still wanted to do it. That's Desmond. But yeah, I totally agree, bro. Like, too many people, they just speak so authoritatively on things that they know nothing about. And I don't know if you've heard, about like the Dunning-Kruger effect. You ever heard of that?
No, I don't.
It's basically like, the more you learn, that when you learn about something initially, you start to, like, after a certain point, you start to be like, oh, okay, I know what this is all about. I get it. I get this now. I am a knowledgeable person in this subject. And then if you keep going, you start to realize how little you know. And most people are stuck in that superficial level where they're like, oh my gosh, yes, keto, do this, do this, do this, do this. No, don't worry about that. What is he talking about? I've never heard of that. Well, you've never heard of it because you haven't researched that far. And when you get to that further point, that's why, like, some people get frustrated when they hear Dom D'Agostino talk about science, because, like, he's like, this could be happening. We think this is happening, and possibly this too. And this is, and it's like, man, talk more authoritatively. Dom, you're a doctor, blah, blah. And like, no, that's not how a scientist talks. Like, a scientist can only truly talk about observations. We have a hypothesis, and then we have a theory. And a theory is not law. Like
it's a theory.
You want to hear a crazy one, bro? The law of gravity. There's no way gravity has never been proven.
I agree.
So like I'm not saying that gravity doesn't exist, but you can't call it a law if it's never been proven. And you can say, well, it's been proven because this happens, and that's gravity. I'm like, yeah, you're saying what gravity does. You're not saying how gravity exists or what causes gravity. So anyways, that's a good answer, bro. That's a good answer.
And just let me piggyback a little bit on that. When I was doing my paper, the professor told me, look, Carlos, do not try to fit in. If the question you're asking, if it's not getting answered with the people or participants are giving the answer, don't try to fit it in there. Don't try to make it the answer that you want. Don't let your biases control the paper, the study, right? So as a runner, and we'll talk about this later, but as a runner, there's a bias already from the get-go, right? I'm a runner. So in my mind, I'm already thinking, oh, they're going to answer like this. They're going to say this happened to me. So when I was asking the questions, I found myself holding back allowing, I found myself saying to him a lot of times, listen, I'm not trying to answer this for you. So I would keep talking. And then I would say, I'm sorry. I want to hear what you have to say, because it's easy for me to speak on what it is to run at 3 o'clock in the morning. You're 150 miles in a run. I get it. I've been there before, but my experience is not everyone's experience. So I have to allow that to, I have to allow that to be organic and let it flow. Right. And I can only talk about as much as I know, up to a point where I know.
Mm-hmm. And even like, we'll talk about even the sample. I mean, anybody who's run a 100-mile race is going to automatically be a little bit different, because not all of us, not all of us decide to do that. So, no, but it's
right.
great,
That
bro.
alone is a bias. That's a bias. Yeah, yeah. So let's get into it, man.
All right. So I love the paper. It's on the perceived mental and physical stress of endurance runners. And, I've been spending a lot of time the last 5 years learning about stress and how, wow, stress is much more important than we thought, like much more important than even your diet. It can really be the number one thing that's wrecking your physique, your everything. So I'm kind of curious though, just what led you to doing this whole study?
Well, as you know, as I said before, I did run. I do run. So, and I've done multiple, runs where it's been 24 hours or more, 15 hours, 20 hours, whatever, long extended period of time running. And I used to think, I would question myself, because out there, I mean, I was in a run that did 96 hours. I think in those 96 hours, I was probably alone for 70 of them. So you have a lot of time to think. And I would think to myself, what am I doing here? What is pushing me to do this? Why am I, I have a broken toe. I have blisters. I'm throwing up. I have diarrhea. This is at the same time.
At the same
Why
time,
am I, yeah, this is happening all at the same time, right? Um, you're dehydrated, you're hungry, you have a headache, you're sunburned. This is all these things I'm telling you is happening simultaneously. And you're wondering, what keeps you going? What kept me going? Like, what keeps you going to the next checkpoint, right? You're looking at your watch and fuck, I got 20 more miles to go. And I only have 2 bottles of water and I'm dying over here and I still have 5 hours to the next checkpoint, right? So what is it? So that is what led to this. Is like, what is it in me that allows me, or that makes me want to continue traveling and keep moving forward, as I say? That's what led to this.
I love that, bro. I love it. I love it. And I'm interested in that too. I think one of the questions I'm going to ask you is I think it's important to study this group because, like this is a group of people that are going against everything that their brain is telling them. And that's, I think anybody who does something like that, whether it be climbing mountains, really high mountains where you're like the oxygen is or doing stuff like this, it's important to see because too many people don't understand, like they feel discomfort and that's like boom, stop sign, that's it. So a little bit of the details. So you identified 9 participants and you conducted interviews on the distances they ran, mental and physical stressors during events, and how they coped with exercise-induced stress. You mentioned that 100% of them experienced exercise-induced stress, but only 14% did not complete a 100-mile race. So what were some of the key factors that allowed that other 86% to finish their races in spite of experiencing that stress?
Got it. So let's be clear. 14% is a low number.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So 14% people don't
enough.
finish 100-mile races. But if we were to dig deeper, I think that I also asked another question, was how many races, ultra marathons, have you done total, meaning 50K and above? And I think it was like 206. So the actual the DNF rate, the not finish rate, was actually lower. It was like 3%. So that's just off the bat, that's an amazing number. We have to give it to these people, right? They're just not to be able to finish these races. That's 50K is like 31.2 miles. Think about all the people that have done marathons and they failed. Talking about the next level, right? So what happened with these people that didn't finish, those 14% that didn't finish the race, was a combination of things. They got hurt. They were just overtrained. They were just having negative self-talk. Or from the beginning, they already knew they weren't going to finish the race. So a lot of those things, the combination of those stressors, just again, there's stressors that there maybe have one stressor, but there's people that are facing 5, 6, 7, 8 stressors at any given time. So you got to remember the mental state that they're in, right? So you're a 50-mile mark, 70-mile mark, you haven't eaten, and you have a climb, a 5,000 climb or 4,000 foot climb, and you're just negative, and you're talking negative to yourself, and past you, and you're hungry, and you're throwing up, and you got shin splints, and you have blisters. This is what's happening to these people. So some of them just couldn't overcome that. That I don't know if exactly. I should have asked. That these races that you didn't finish, did they become at the beginning of your career, at the end of your career, or mid of your career? But what happened was a lot of them just mentally couldn't, not so much physically, because we'll talk about that later, but mentally couldn't cope with it. I think that was more important.
Yeah, bro. And I think that what marks a good research paper
What's
is
that?
is that it causes you to question a lot of things. Like you just gave me a question. Like, all of these people are seasoned because all of them have done several ultra races. Like each of them have done like 5 or more. Like
Right. Minimum.
and minimum. And like so if you have someone who's like maybe ran a half marathon or a marathon and now they did an ultra race, they bit off too much more than they can chew and they DNF'd. That's a whole different type of person, because maybe they continue, maybe that's like, what, let me get my crap together and let me, do it better. But you don't even know if that person's going to continue. We're talking about people who throughout their career have been finishing races and may have not finished one, in the grand scheme
Right.
of things for one reason or another.
Right. And you
Which
got
the
to
law
talk
of
about,
averages, you're gonna get injured sometimes,
you're
and
going to
things
get
are gonna
injured,
happen.
right? You got to also
Yeah,
remember, these people on the average, they're training 16 hours a week, an average of 60, almost 68 miles a week in the trails. That's a lot of miles average, right? We're talking about some guys were doing 120 miles a week. Some people were doing 50, but they're averaging 67.7 miles a week. That is a lot. Try to cycle 67 miles. Most people can't even do that. So people are running it in addition to they're probably in the gym, they're probably swimming, they have to go to work, they have to eat, they have to sleep, they got to take care of their kids. Right? That's a lot of time that they're spending out in the mountains.
and that's another thing that the average age was 48.
48 years old. Yeah, again, this is not me saying anything, but there's no correlation, there's no causation between any of this. Is maturity levels. It occurs to me that maturity has something to do with this type of running.
Yeah. You don't see a lot of really young ultra runners.
I mean, you see them, but it's very rare that you see them. I mean, you go to a course, you go to a race course, and the majority. Again, I don't. I'm. I hate to speak like this because I want to be more data driven, but based upon the eye test, what I've seen is like, for example, I did a 200 miler, and the majority they were in their 40s. There was nobody in their 20s. I don't think maybe 1 or 2 in their 20s, but the rest were 30, 40. The average age is between 45 and 50 is where you're going to get your number of people. And these are people who are winning races.
Wow, bro. Well, let's talk about the other thing is, you mentioned, and this is when you were going over like the research that you had done, and you were reading about everything that was done, and that was another reason why you did this in the first place. That this wasn't nothing had been done on this, but
Right.
you mentioned that when in recovery, endurance runners showed increases in impaired stress when their training was increased, but the stress response was positive when the training was decreased. And one of the things that I've always tried to balance is how far can I consistently push myself without too much of a negative impact, like on my immune system, on my motivation. And so maybe to the point that not even to the point that the stress is helpful, because once you get to a certain point, it's no longer going to be helpful. It's more about mitigating the damage. So I don't think that this is something that you covered here, but like, have you personally or have you observed, like, is there, how do we find that balance between, really constantly pushing the envelope and, hurting ourselves? Because then, you have respiratory issues, you have, joint issues, all these things that happen that then you're out.
Right. So that's a really good question. And I think that's a question that all ultra runners, most ultra runners, and I want to say all are constantly balancing, right? So for example, this 16-hour training week, it just doesn't happen overnight. And the 67 miles a week doesn't happen overnight. What happens is, my experience is, you gradually, just like anything, like where you're tapering up, you're tapering down, you're adding mileage every week. So what happens is you get to a certain miles. Let's say I'm doing 50 miles, and now my body is destroyed. And as a good seasoned ultra runner, what you want to do is you want to look back. Did I do too much this last week? Did I do too much that other week? Should I push more? What happens is you start adjusting. Okay, I can do 10 more miles this weekend than I did last week, and then the next weekend I can do less miles. So what happens is you start adjusting. So again, not a seasoned ultra marathoner is not going to say, I'm going to do 67 miles this week. It doesn't work that way. What they're doing is they're checking their body. They're constantly checking their body. When you're running 50 miles, I'm constantly doing a body check. How do I feel? Where am I going? That's the ultra marathoner's life on the course, is they're constantly they're checking. I don't care what anybody says. You are constantly in tune with your body. And it's the same thing with training comes. They're training and they're training. Oh, wait a minute. My back's hurting. My calf is hurting. I'm getting more blisters than not. Am I using the right sock? And so they're constantly adjusting and adjusting and adjusting. And for an ultra marathoner, now there is such thing as overtraining syndrome, right? People overtrain all the time. But as a good seasoned ultra marathoner, like these people that I was interviewing, they're constantly checking themselves and saying, could I go more? Could I not go more? And another thing that I did was I always seek counsel. Hey, brother, I know you did 250 miles, or you did 120 miles this week, and I'm at 70. I want to go to 80. What do you think? And they'll start questioning me, asking me, what are you doing? They'll be like, okay, you should stop there. Maybe you can go more or go less. So you're constantly seeking counsel as well. So to answer the question is, there's no right or wrong answer. I think it's more of a reflection of what's going on, and also seeking help from others that have been there before. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, and I think you mentioned there was a term for it in the paper, like auto something regulation, that talks about how that approach that most runners take, which is exactly what you're saying. It's checking with their body,
right?
Checking, and that's awesome again, because again, the typical person, most of the time, unless they're just being lazy and they're like, oh, I'm not going to do it, is like bullheaded. They're like, I'm going to do this many sets and I'm going to do this, and that's it, no matter what. And I love this idea of checking in with your body, because we should be able to know our bodies well enough that we pull back before it's too late, because that's the goal, is to wait till the very last minute, but not when it's too late, because when it's too late now, you're going to lose time. So I love that. All right, so I think my favorite theme, just based on, it's between this one and the fourth, because the fourth one was great too, but how training affected exercise-induced stress, because you mentioned that one participant, I think this is the guy who was winning all the races, he answered that although training affected his stress, it was a positive stressor. And then a few of them mentioned that training helped with negative self-talk. And to me, this is gravy for me, bro. This is serious gravy, because this is what everybody needs to learn. So, talk about this one. Talk about, how this stress, it's almost like they flipped it on its head.
Yeah. So this question came out of the participants on their own, right? So as I was studying, and I'm like, what can I ask these questions? And then this one just popped out, and I'm like, oh, this is not a good question. But then as I kept on asking it, it was like, okay, this is a good question. It's like, do you believe that training affects the stress? Your training affects stress. And I'm like, it kind of does. But what was surprising is that 80%, 88% they say, okay, yes, it does affect the stress. And I'm not surprised by that number, right? Again, I'm biased, but I think everybody would say, yes, it's a high percentage. It's 88%. But what really surprised me was that 44% of those people said that it was positive. I'm like, what? How is that positive? I freaking stress out. Yeah, man, I'm overtraining. The big one was my wife, my kids. I got to go to work, and it's all these things, right? And then other people said positive. I was like, wait a minute, hold on. let's talk about that for a minute. People said that it helps me knowing that even though I'm stressed, I'm doing, let's say 50 miles this week. Now I know in my mind I could do 50 miles. That kind of alleviates the stress. Get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's the way I approach it. I'm like, wow, that's interesting. I don't think about it like that. I think about it, I have to go train, right? I get to go train, but getting to go train comes a lot of stuff with it, right? People said, oh my God, my wife. Then others said, man, I got 50 miles under my belt. I feel really good. That was the difference in the two, the positive, negative. And that really surprised me. I never even thought I was going to get positives, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's super cool, man. And the whole thing is like, I know what you mean, because you said, you corrected yourself. You said I get to train, but it's you do get to train, but it's a necessity. Like you feel like it's like there's no, I gotta train. Like
Yeah, you
not
gotta
because
yeah.
it's not an obligation, but you gotta. I can't not train.
Yeah. So I think I know what you're trying to say. So I'm an ultra runner, and there's a non-ultra runner, the guy who does a marathon, let's say, for example. We both need to train. We gotta train, right? He probably is like, excuse my language, shit, I gotta go train. And I'm like, I gotta get it in today, because if you read, it says it's a confidence booster. And I did 50 miles this week, man. I feel really good about myself. So next week, going into the 60-mile week, I'm like, you know what? I did 50 last week. I'm gonna do 50 this week or 60 this week. I feel good. As opposed to the marathon guy, he's like, shit, I gotta get this done because I gotta post those pictures on Facebook, and I already told everybody I'm doing this, right? It's a different type of motivation, I guess.
It's an obligation
an obligation, as opposed to a love, a passion that obviously, again, these people, I don't want to say obviously, again, it's not data driven because I didn't ask that question, but there's definitely something going on here that these people like this that they're doing.
Yeah. Now I love this one. Again, there's another one. This is just, I'm just curious about this one. So all of them, all the participants agreed that stress affected their race results.
Yes.
But only 12% reported that they underperformed because of it. So it affected all of their race results, but only 12% underperformed. Like, can you give some background on that?
That's a really good question. So I probably should have did a follow-up question, which I didn't. But so what's going on? So we have 10 people, let's say 9 people, they all finished the races. They all suffered some kind of induced stress, and they all said, you know what, this did affect my race. Some of them came into that race saying, I'm going to finish this ultra marathon in 20 hours. They probably did it in 21. They're like, yay. There's a guy that came into that race saying, I'm going to do this in 15, and he did it in 22. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what happens.
It's perception.
So it's the perception, right? So they're not, when they're saying that it does affect them, but their underperformance means that, I'm excited because I'm going to finish this race in X, Y, and Z. And then they're like, man, I didn't do as good as I thought I was going to do. Again, I don't know what the odds are, but me, I go into my race knowing, okay, I did X amount of training. I believe I'm going to, this is the difficulty of this race. This is the elevation. These are the conditions. This is the environment. I'm going to probably finish around this time. And if I finish somewhere around there, I'm okay. Right? But now if I finish 5, 6, 7, 8 hours later, then okay, there's something wrong. I underperformed.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So that's all based on perception, which is important.
That's all based on perception, on training. Did you really train as much hard as you did? You say we're going to train. So, I mean, it's all about, did I really do the things I should have done to get to that race goal?
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay. So let's talk about what we talked about before. So I talked about how, there's this specific group of people, which I think a lot of us should be studying, because, you don't just wake up and say, I'm going to run 100 miles, or a 50K. So this is a good one. And I hope you got something on this one, because it's so, to me, this is something that all of us should be trying to figure out. So why do you think it is that 88% experience wanting to quit, but only 14.5% did not finish? So were you able to identify any factors there?
Yeah, for sure. So I want to start this with this story. So this question right here, this is the question that really pushed me to do the study was, why am I finishing and other people are not? That was the question there. So I'm going to put it like this. The best way that I could put this, David Goggins. We all know who David Goggins is. And if you don't know, look him up. David Goggins. You'll find him on YouTube all over the place. David Goggins said, they asked him, why don't you quit? And he said, and I'm not word for word, but this is what he said. He said that if I quit a race, when I'm taking that shower after the race, the pain of me taking that shower and quitting is much worse than any other pain that I could have felt on the race course. Right? So that's how I feel. I'm like, I'd rather die. I'd rather limp. I'd rather crawl to the finish line than have to go home and face that mirror. Like, dude, you quit on yourself. So that's the way I looked. I came into this. Again, that's bias, right? That's my bias. So I had to kind of hold myself back from this question because I really was excited about this question. So the biggest thing I got from people was, I never consider quitting. That came up multiple times. I don't know what quitting is, Carlos. That even gives me goosebumps. I don't even know what that means. I was feeling challenged to finish. I had to finish. I couldn't quit. What do you mean quit? There is no quitting. It was just constant like that. Constantly. There was just every single one of them. Nope, don't quit. Don't quit. When I said quit, they're like, no, there's no quit. Like that didn't even register into them. The word quit didn't register. So again, I can't really say one thing leads to another, but what I could say is that these people they go into these races not using the word quit, not considering quitting. They never go in there thinking, I might quit. Yeah. They go in there like, I'm going to suffer. It's going to hurt. I'm going to be in pain. I'm going to vomit. I'm going to have diarrhea. I'm going to have all those other things, but never, I'm going to quit. Yeah, I should have asked that question. Do you ever use the word quit? I guarantee you, probably 100% would have said never.
Yeah, bro. I think what Tom Shea, I told you about Tom Shea, and he talks about like doing these challenges, like the 21-day challenge, where you do something in the morning, you do something before you go to bed. And what that does is, because most people don't know their inner voice, because they're not conscious of it, because they're not putting themselves in positions where the inner voice gets louder. And I think the training is the X factor, because no one goes into a 100-mile race with, having run 30 miles a week. They're not going to make it. Right. So like a lot of that work gets done during training.
It does.
And it's a habitual thing where you're going over and over. And I think like perfect example, our boy's friend Riley, she goes to public school, and she has to say no a lot to crap food, because the teachers reward them with crap food. And because she has to say no a lot, it's so easy for her to say no. She's so used to saying no that it's like, no, I don't, no. And it's like a lot of practice to saying no. And that's what Tom Shea says, is like, you listen to that inner voice and you get to the point where you say, I hear you, but no, that's not going to happen.
Right. I know you're there, but no. So it's good to point out. So for example, let's talk about that guy. I had one participate in one. I wish I had a bigger sample, and I was going to get other people who won races, but anyway, that person that won rated the highest in number of runs, rated the highest in number of 100-mile runs, rated the highest number of finishes, and he had below average stressors. That tells you something, right? So, and if you look at his hours in training, not miles in training is high, but his hours is low. Why? Because he's a faster runner, so he had to train less. But if you look at it, he runs more miles than everybody else, right? So it's important, what you said. The more you train, the more you're going to do, the better you're going to feel, the more you're going to finish. And that's evident this. And I didn't even ask for that. I just said, tell me about it. Tell me about you. And when I was sitting down, when I did the numbers, I said, wow, look at, this is what popped out. The participant who won is above average in all the categories. Maybe there's more here that needs to be investigated, right? But this is something that, it was a general case study, but that does tell you a lot about what endurance running is all about. If you train and you work well and you do what you're supposed to and you eat well, you participate in more races and you end up winning more races. And this is what happened here with this participant, which I found to be super interesting. I figured, somebody who has less hours or less, they could win too. But no, at the end of the day, it's the person who did more won.
Yeah, and again, like, so we talked about how saying no over and over and over, that's one thing, but it's also like what David Goggins calls the cookie jar.
Yep.
Because it's like, you reach into that cookie jar when you need like previous wins that you've had, and it's like, wait a second, bro, you're full of crap. Like, you've done this 5 million times before. Why are you doing this right now? No, look, remember? And you're running and you're thinking about, remember how good it felt when you did that? You did that already. You did that 100-miler. The conditions were worse. This was worse. You were injured. Remember you had that ankle injury. Remember you had the, plantar fasciitis, whatever. And you did it anyway. So, again, I think it comes down to doing, and over and over and over and over.
So I did a race it does. A perfect example is that I was doing a race in the desert in California, and I was on day 6. I had done already like 165 miles already. So, and this last, I think it was like 9 or 10 miles, and it was up a hill. It was like 9 miles up a hill. And when I got to I was really nervous at the beginning, and I'm like, man, this is going to kick my butt. Anyway, when I got to the course, I go, wow, this looks so familiar. This mountain looks familiar. And it was a mountain that I had been training on in California for months, right? And it looked exactly like, I go, oh, I know this one. And man, I just took off. And I passed so many people that day. Why? Because of that cookie jar, right? I went in there and I grabbed it and I said, I've done it.
You took souls. You took their souls.
I took those souls, man. People were walking up, just kept going and going and going. I think I went from like 60th place, like 50th to like 33rd or something like that.
Wow.
Because of the people that I passed. Not saying that to brag. I'm just saying that does, right? You go into there, you reflect back on your training, what you've done, and that can push you even after 6 days of running all those miles.
I love it, bro. I just had a question because it's not on here, but it just popped in my head.
Sure.
I think I'd love to get your thoughts on this. It's like, a lot of people have done that, right? Like a lot of people have had those wins in life.
Yep.
And maybe last year was like huge monkey wrench, and maybe they haven't figured out why they are the way they are. Like, why have you like, what can you say to someone who just can't seem to get the mojo back, bro? Like, have you thought about that?
You know what, Danny? I got to be completely transparent here. I was on a roll with this school, with this class, with this paper, right? And then the last 2 months, man, I gave up. I said, man, I said that negative self-talk. Oh man, you're wasting your time. You could do it later on. All these things, and just kept on. And I'm like, I kept pushing it off. I kept pushing it off. And then I called my professor and I said, man, I just don't want to do this no more. And he told me, look, Carlos, you're not the only one. Everybody in this class is feeling the same exact thing that you're feeling. Everybody wanted to quit somewhere down the point. He said, do me a favor, just do this one assignment and then we'll take it from there. So I did the assignment and I did really well, and I did the next one and I did the next one, and that just kind of catapulted me to finish this. I was this close to quitting. But then I said to myself, if I quit, if I look in that mirror, how am I going to feel about myself? I went back to that. I knew it. I woke up yesterday thinking, thank you, God, I'm done with this, because if I would have waited another 2 months, I would have been killing myself right now. I would have been hating myself. So I know this is going to sound cliche. Last year was a tough year for a lot of people, including myself. I know for you and your wife and the kids and church and all these people that are going through things. I just think that what we need to do is, and again, it's going to sound cliche, don't try to do everything at the same time. Just take one step at a time. If what you're going to do is your paper, start writing. If you want to write a book, just start writing half a page, quarter of a page, full page. If you want to start working out, like for example, today I'm on your carnivore keto cut. I'm like, oh, I'm not going to work out. But then I went to the gym and I did 20 minutes of exercise. I did some chest, I did push-ups, I did sit-ups, and I felt good. I'm not nearly where I want to be, but it feels good, right? My mind is like, okay, Carlos, I get it. This is what we're gonna do. So now we're moving forward. And as opposed to being negative and negative and negative, start changing the dialogue in your head. Start thinking about things that will make you feel better. If you haven't been to the beach, man, just go to the beach. If you haven't been to a restaurant, if you're a place where you can eat at a restaurant, go to a restaurant. Stop watching the news. I think that the news is killing us.
Oh yeah.
Right?
No, really.
Call somebody to speak to somebody that loves you, that can have your back, that'll make you feel good, that'll say good things about you. Talk to that person, man. I'm always trying to make people feel better, man. I'm always trying to find a positive, man, because I know that when I was a kid, I remember I used to get bullied, and I remember that feeling. So I always try to make people feel better. I see people at work that I supervise, and I go, "Hey, man, you okay?" And I'm, "Oh man, I don't feel good." All right, cool. Then I have a seat, go do this, go do another job, because I know that they're going through their own demons at that moment, man. So I guess one step at a time, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
Don't quit. Look for people to help you out. I mean, call me, email me, send me a text, right? That's why I say people, if you need something, man, I'm not the greatest at anything, but I definitely can change your attitude like that for sure. 100%, I can guarantee change you.
And you know, one of the things that you're probably not saying is that it makes you feel good when you help people. So
it does make you feel good, man.
And like that's you know, in AA they always talk about like when you're feeling all up in your feelings and in your ego, and it's all about you and pour me a drink. You know, like do some service. You know, go serve someone, because you feel so much better. And like I've been trying to pay attention to that too, because like the other day we were in Aldi and there was only one register and the guy was just like hammered. And then like a lady comes in and everybody's like, you could tell everybody's kind of stressed. I see this lady, it was Friday night too. It was a Friday night. And this lady is like scanning things super quick. And I'm like, wow, that was like a world record there. Thank you. Like that was super fast, you know, like, and just like I made a joke about it, you know, and I made her smile because she's working and it's Friday night and it's, you know, people are pissed and they don't care about her. They care about getting their stuff. Yeah. So they do the next thing, you know? So no, I love that, bro. So let's talk about one more question, because this one was really, really interesting. Talk about the 4 options you gave. I think it was 4. And and then the role of the environment and why it seemed to be the biggest motivating factor.
Yeah, I think the 4, let me look at it here. Can you still see me on the screen?
Yeah.
So the 4 was, number 1 was goals. Number 2 was motivation. Number 3 was training. And number 3 was the environment. So the question was, like, what keeps you going in a race, right? That was really important to me. That theme just keeps coming up. Like, I would ask people, what keeps you going? And I forgot what the percentage, maybe you know better. How many people said the environment?
It was like, remember, 33% or something? Or
was it 33%? Maybe it was 33% that people found it to.
It was the biggest one.
It was the biggest one, yeah. That people kept saying that the reason that they kept going out there was because of the environment. Although the individual who won said that the biggest thing was training. Thing, right?
Yeah.
So the people who don't win, who just go out there because they want to go out there because they're passionate about it, they all said that being in touch with nature, being close to God. I used to pray. I pray a lot. I love the mountains. I love the streams. I love the weather. I mean, when I'm saying this, I'm reminiscing and I'm getting goosebumps. I'm thinking about it because for me, it's really important to be in that environment, right? Because it's closer to nature. So yeah, I thought that was really, really interesting, man. That how people automatically, man. Oh man, dude, I love being out. What the next person? Oh my God, I just love it. The mountains, the snow. Everybody? It was just constantly over and over. Same theme just kept popping up, except the individual who won. Like, no, it's about training.
But that's okay, because that's outliers, right? Like those are the outliers.
That's an outlier, right?
It's a low percentage amount of people that are going to be like that, and we can strive to be like that. But sometimes, you know, and you wire your brain that way, but not everybody can do that. And I think even though like the environment is one of those things that it made me think, because it was like, this is awesome, because anybody who's not doing this would never know just how awesome the environment is. You know, they wouldn't know unless they do other things out there, and they're just out there in the environment. But like, you know, we have a lot of city dwellers. We have a lot of urban areas that people are living in boxes and you know, living that rat race lifestyle, and it's hard. And you know, they don't do this because they don't have time, but they're missing out because they probably look, they'll definitely increase their lifespan. They'll definitely increase their health span, and they're missing out. So I love that, bro. This was good, bro. This was a good paper, man.
Thank
Hopefully,
you. I appreciate it,
you're
man.
not trying to get it published or anything.
You know, I haven't talked to my professor yet, but he hasn't reached out or nothing like that. I don't know. I mean, it would take a lot more work that I got to put into it, but I don't know. Maybe I'll do another one because I think there's a lot of questions that need to be answered, and that population is really interesting. I mean, there's people that I reached out to a lot of people, big, you know, high profile people, and they all denied me, but still, I got some really, really good people that are participating in this thing. I'm gonna tell you what I got out of this study was I did kind of figure out why I do what I do more than anything else. I figured out it's really simple. Is I just love to do it. I love to experience what I haven't experienced before, and I think that to me is why, for example, I don't like to do races that like they're in circles, right? Like I like point to point because I like to experience something new every time. I used to ask myself, why don't I do those round, 24-hour mile things? It doesn't appeal to me because I'm not learning something new. I'm not feeling something new. I'm not getting that new sensation. I realized that being in the middle of the desert, you opened up I remember this. I opened up a gate and there was a cow just passing by me, do, like nothing, I'm in the middle of nowhere, being the cow by itself. And it was just like the most amazing experience. I can't even share that with people because they don't understand. They haven't been there. It's just, and I think that's why I do what I do. And that's why I initially, the true motivation was this paper, because I wanted other people to experience what I've experienced. But what I realized that you can't experience what I experienced. It's your own individual experience. You have to be there. You have to go through it, right? Like, you did 40 miles the other day and I was supposed to be with you and I didn't go, right?
Yeah, but I had to switch it to a work day because
right. You had to switch it to a work day, right? So anyway, you did it, but that's your experience. Nobody, not even your wife or your kids, or doesn't matter who, they can't take that experience away from you. You can't share that experience. You could share it, but you're not really
even if you take a
sharing
picture of something, it's not even like I took a picture. There was one time there, and I know exactly what you mean, bro, because there's a lot of farmland out here. And bro, I swear, I locked eyes with this horse, and he was looking at me, and I was like passing him. I saw him from like 30 yards away, and then like I'm running by him, and he's locking eyes, and he's staying looking at me. And we had that moment, bro. And I was like, bro, who are you? And I'm just like looking at him, like, look at him there. And I'm gonna be gone, and he's gonna forget about me, and he's gonna keep existing there. And but we had that moment, and you see that with the same thing with your cow, like, and we have all of these different feedback that we're getting from the environment, which is just the best. That's why like it sucks to run in the city. Like, I mean, it's probably cool for some people. For me, look, it's definitely about being in those rural areas and being in nature, bro.
Yeah. So for example, think about the moment that you were, half a mile from the finish, quarter mile from the finish, 100 feet from the finish, right? Think about that. Put yourself there again. And when you finish, right, right there, I can't get it. Even though like I've done it, right? I have done it, but it's Danny's experience. And that's what I wish everybody else, more people would be able to experience. Yeah. That's, I think, the motivation of what we did.
Bro, I think it was great. And speaking of motivation, I thought it was hilarious because I called you right after I was finished when I did my thing. And I was picking up some gluten-free pizza, and I was thinking I was gonna eat. I ordered 2 pizzas. I ended up eating one, like half of one, half of the other. But like I remember that when I got into my car after finishing the 40 miles, and I literally drove not even a mile because I was very close to where the place was, because I walked by it earlier, and and
I know what you're gonna say.
That's where I'm getting my food. And I literally was like, I got out of my car, I was like, oh, like I'm like limping everywhere. My feet hurt, my legs hurt. And I'm just like, if I would have told myself that I needed to do 10 more miles, I would have done them. But since I said that I was done, my brain said, oh, you're going to hurt now.
Yep.
It's crazy. I was very surprised by that.
So I'm glad you brought that up. So this is a great example of what makes these guys so amazing, right? So they feel that feeling 10 or 15 times during a race.
You mean the pain and
you were feeling? Oh
yeah,
my God,
the pain cave. They call it the pain cave,
like the most pain you can ever feel, and then yet they keep moving, and then it miraculously disappears because you tell the brain, "We are not stopping. We're gonna go." So it doesn't matter what you say, what you do. We're gonna keep moving, right? So that's what when you were asking me, why don't people DNF more? Is because of that. They're like, yeah, they're temporary pain. They're like, oh. They keep chugging along. It's like a train that's taking off on the track slowly. And he just keeps going. That's what most people are doing. Most people are experiencing in a race, what you just said, but yet they overcome that. That's what they're overcoming, that right there. Yeah. Not so much the physical pain, but the mental.
Yeah, it is always mental. Because like I'm blown away by that. Like, and Goggins talked about it. And like you, even like when you told me like you've had cramps in your calves or something like that, and then you keep running, and like most people, I think maybe it's a lack of education or lack of experience, probably, because you're like, bro, that's a key symbol from my body that I should stop, and then you're like, no, you shouldn't, and you keep going, and somehow that muscle decides to contract again, and somehow I think the nerves maybe lower the signal. Because, or maybe your brain finds a way to circumvent that signal and replace it with something to where it dulls it. It lowers the volume of it.
Yeah.
Because it's still there.
There's a thing called a governor, right? You know what a governor is?
Yeah, like a governor, right?
So,
on an engine. Yeah.
So the body has a governor. And I'm not sure who it was that Vinnie, what's the guy Vinnie like from the
Golgi? Oh yeah, you're talking about the. Yeah, they talked about. Oh my gosh, we talked about this. Didn't we talk about this on the ketogenic athlete?
Maybe we did
it before. It was what's his name talks about it too. Professor Noakes, Tim Noakes talks about.
Yeah, Noakes. So he was Noakes. So he talks about we can never run enough to die. Let's say I can't run enough and then I die. You can run enough and die because you have high blood pressure, you have heart condition, you have pre-existing conditions, right? But your body will never allow you to run fast enough or farther enough where you die from just running. You'll pass out, but you can never run hard enough to kill yourself. People say, "Oh, but people die all the time." Yeah, because they have pre-existing conditions. That's why they die, right? So it doesn't matter. So don't worry about hurting yourself or not. Just keep moving forward. Your body's telling you slowly, my back hurts, my leg hurts. That's just your body saying, oh my God, I've never been this far before. So I'm going to hurt here in this pain. I'm going to hurt in this toe and this fit. And then little by little, you start hurting in different places throughout the whole race, right? And that's your body indicating to you, hey man, you know what? We're pushing the limit here. So we got to figure something out. But as a seasoned ultra runner, that's when your training comes in, right? Been through this before, felt this before, you know how to mitigate it, you know how to take care of it. So that's the difference between most people who finish and most people who don't finish is knowing that and training.
Bro, Carlos, this was awesome, man. Tell the people where they can find you and where they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, man, you can find me on Facebook at carlosdones.com and at Instagram at Ultra, what is it? I don't even know my
Ultra Carlos
Ultra Carlos D. You know what? I stayed away from Instagram for like 6 weeks, man. I just wanted to get away from all that mumbo jumbo garbage stuff. And I said, when I finish my paper, get back on. So I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Carlos Dones at Twitter, at Carlos Dones on Twitter as well. So
love it, bro. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you, Danny, brother. You've been such an inspiration to me, man, and to many, many other people, and we appreciate it, brother.
Thank you, bro.
All right, brother.